Mhm.
Almost every person in the world has had an experience with cancer, whether it be themselves, their relatives, or their friends. If someone you know is being treated for cancer, you might want to learn about what they're going through, such as like the treatment, such as surgery, chemotherapy, and radiation. Those are the most common types of cancer treatment, and I'm going to talk about that. The first, I would like to explain to you what cancer is. Cancer is a disease where cells go out of control and invade, erode, and destroy normal tissue. Cancer is a medical term Cancer is a medical term used to talk about an array of diseases that all started the same way. A normal cell went haywire and began growing and dividing uncontrollably. What causes a cell to stop acting the way it should? Every time a cell divides, there is the potential for errors to develop in the letter code that makes up the cell's genetic material, DNA. Sometimes the checkpoints in the cell that makes sure DNA are copied correctly catch these errors and send a message for cell to self-destruct. Other times the immune system notices something's wrong and kills the cell, or the cell might just keep on dividing, passing on that mistake to its daughter cells. Normal body cells grow, divide, and die in an orderly fashion, while cancer cells are different because they do not die, they just continue to grow and divide in a disorderly fashion. Some of the causes of cancer, according to the cancer support community, is benzene and other chemicals. Benzene drinking excess alcohol, environmental toxins such as certain poisonous mushrooms, a type of poison that can grow in peanut plants, known as aflatoxins, excessive sunlight exposure, which causes skin cancer, genetic problems, obesity, radiation, and viruses. The word tumor simply refers to a mass. This general term that can refer to benign, generally harmless, or malignant cancerous growth. A cancer is another word for a malignant tumor, a malignant neoplasm. Malignant tumors spread to other areas of the body, and the benign tumors stay in one place. That's why they're more easily to treat. And the difference between the malignant and benign tumor, the malignant grows rapid, while the benign grows slower. The malignant invades surrounding tissue, while the benign expands in the same tissue. And the malignant spreads metastasized via the bloodstream and the lymphatic stream, and the benign does not spread. The cell differentiation in the malignant tumor are usually born, and the benign tumor are nearly normal. The common cancer types are bladder cancer, lung cancer, breast cancer, colon and rectal cancer, pancreatic cancer, kidney cancer, prostate cancer, and leukemia, according to the Mayo Clinic. In localized cancer, surgery typically attempts to remove the entire mass. Chemotherapy is a drug used to kill cancer cells, disrupt some aspect of cell division. to healthy cells, herbin, marrow, lymphocytes, and epithelial cells and intestinal lining. The side effects include hair loss, nausea, vomiting, and reduced immune responses. Doctors use chemotherapy or chemo to kill cancer cells. The term chemotherapy refers to the use of drugs to kill cancer cells. Usually the drugs are given into a vein or IV, or they're taken by mouth. Chemo drugs then travel through the body in the bloodstream, reaching cancer cells that may have spread metastasized from the tumor to other places in the body. Radiation therapy is the high energy rays that are used to kill cancer cells. And it stops the cancer cells from growing and dividing. Radiotherapy is a local treatment and it can affect cancer cells only in a treated area. The side effects are tiredness, skin reactions such as rash, redness, and loss of appetite, temporary lowering of the disease count. Biological therapy or immunotherapy. These are also some kinds of treatments. Monoclonal antibodies, interferon, interleukin-2, colony-stimulating factor. And the side effects are temporary flu-like symptoms such as fever and chills, muscle aches and weakness, loss of appetite, and diarrhea. Is cancer treatment worse than cancer? Well, it is dangerous and it has a lot of side effects, but if it's not treated at all, symptoms tend to become worse and worse, and the person may die from radiated cancer. According to the Mayo Clinic, some way that how you can prevent cancer is not using tobacco, although it contains many chemicals that can cause cancer. Eat a healthy diet. You can include a lot of vegetables, and you can eat less meat. Maintain a healthy weight and be physically active. Protect yourself from the sun. Get illness. Avoid risky behaviors and get regular medical care. Some people with cancer will have only one treatment, but most people have a combination of treatments such as surgery, chemotherapy, and or radiation therapy. Take cancer prevention into your own hands. Starting today, the reward will last a lifetime.
All right, Jason, what did you think?
Overall, I liked your answer. It was interesting. I feel like your topic was identified in the beginning, especially like what are the types of cancers, the causes, and list of prevention to prevent cancer. I liked her visual aid between the benign tumor versus the malignant tumor. I wish she spoke a little louder because, some things were hard to hear. I kind of missed a couple facts. Also, I would have liked to see a picture or an animation between the types of tumors. I feel like she stared at the PowerPoint or read off the PowerPoint too much. I wish she would have gave more eye contact in class. And, yeah.
Okay. Well, let me evaluate your evaluation first. All right. I would disagree with you about the very first thing that you said, and then agree with you about a lot of the things that you said later on. So when you said you thought it was interesting, I'm going the exact opposite direction. It sounded dry, and I thought pretty dull. Most of the explanation, there weren't a lot of explanations. I got a lot of lists, and so I think that that's a little bit of a problem. The visual that you mentioned, I thought that was the best thing in the speech. The table chart that compared the malignant to the benign tumors, I thought that that was something that was relatively clear and understandable. It added something to the speech. It was a little bit more interesting than just the words up on the screen. And I could see the contrasting information on that particular point. I would agree with you about the delivery. I think that she does tend to speak a little quietly, and half of the problem, of course, is that she's speaking to the screen instead of to the audience, delivering the speech to that direction, and there's a lot of reading that goes on, which makes, I want to disengage immediately. It's like I'm just watching somebody. It's like watching somebody reading their study notes for a physiology class ahead of time. So you've got a test in your science class, it's a physiology class, and you've made notes about cancer, and you're just kind of reading them to yourself out loud, and we're watching you do that. And that's not a very effective speaking presentation. So I think that there are a lot of problems there. I thought that you had a pretty solid setup of the structure of the speech at the beginning of the speech. And so I anticipated good things. And then in the body of the speech, although you do have some visual indicators that we're moving to a different set of information, as a listener, it's not very clear. There are not very good transition phrases from one section to the other telling us why we're moving on to another section. And I think that that's problematic. A lot of lists that don't get explained, and if you're not going to talk about it and explain it, I'm not sure why we're getting it up on the screen. You've got several of those places where you're talking about treatments of cancer, and you've got a half dozen things listed, and you don't talk about them. I don't know what they are. Interferon. There are a couple of other ones. I'd have to go back and look at the slide to remember all the terms that were up there, but they don't get explained. I was kind of expecting to hear here's basically what cancer is, and you keep it relatively brief. That actually turned into half of your speech, and then a discussion of what the major treatments were. Here's how chemotherapy works. It works at this particular level. And there are different kinds of drugs that they use in chemotherapy, but the goal of the chemotherapy is to do this. Here's how radiation therapy works, and here's here's the process that somebody would go through, or here's the degree of effectiveness that it has, and the same thing with surgery. But we didn't get much of that. We just got, like I said, random lists of information that aren't turned into anything. One of the reasons that I think that it's not very interesting is that there's no stories, there's no narrative, there's no anecdote, there's no illustration that we're getting. There's nothing that's being added to this to make it a unique presentation. Everything that you had, I could get off of a brochure with a list of ideas on it. It's not much. You need to turn it into a speech, and I think you're thinking so much about getting content into the speech that you're forgetting that you're talking to an audience, and that, I think, is a problem. You're going to have to work on that. We're going to be talking about delivery issues a lot more on the next assignment, so I think everybody's going to have to work on this a little bit. Just a couple of things. Haywire, I know you're not a native speaker of English, and so things are a little bit different sometimes. You might want to practice on on that haywire. And malignant was just driving me crazy because, you know, and it's a term that comes up regularly in your speech. It's an important part of the speech. So I think you have to work on an issue like that and practice a little bit. And then if you're not aware, you can go online and put those terms into Google, and it will tell you how to say those words. It's really nice. That's a nice little tool that is out there. Google knows everything. Well, they don't know everything. Well, they know almost everything, but and they make it relatively easy to find. Thank you.